well, my iPad. Welcome, everyone. Oh, man, lots going on. I wrote in the chat what the noise is, so you guys can look in the chat. I pinned it at the top of the chat what the noise is, and I was going to leave, and I was like, nah, I'm here. I'm going to do this. All right, guys. Well, listen, we got a lot to talk about, even with all the interference that's going on. But yesterday, when I was making my vlog up at Mar-a-Lago and all the celebrity homes around President Trump's house, I was getting text messages from people all day. I was very surprised so many people watch this, and I got a lot of messages from people asking me if I saw the Tim Pool Ann Coulter interview, which I did watch. And, you know, I'm going to play some of it here of Ann Coulter and her disgusting words about President Trump. And, you know, you guys got to understand about Ann Coulter, who I used to be a humongous fan of Ann Coulter. I was one of the biggest Ann Coulter fanboys that ever existed a long time ago, until she started trashing Trump. I always loved Ann Coulter. I loved how she took on the establishment. At least I thought that's what she was doing. I like how she took on the media and everything else that Ann Coulter did. Little did I know Ann Coulter was part of this Republican Party Country Club Weekly Standard Lincoln Project type Republican establishment, and she was never really with us. And this interview that she did with Tim Pool, I think, is really a desperate attempt to be relevant. You know, she used to be the go-to person for everything, right? When it came to conservatism, a long time ago, you know. And when she started trashing Trump, that was it for her. She hasn't been relevant in how many years now? And going on Tim Pool trashing Trump, saying good things about DeSantis, she thinks that's her path to becoming relevant again, and she's just not. And it was really sad to watch. I haven't paid attention to her in years, but what she said about President Trump was just outrageous. So I'm going to play one clip. If you're wondering what the noise is, I wrote it in the chat and I pinned it to the top of the chat. I don't know if you guys can hear it that well with the mic. Can you hear the noise? You know, you put on a MAGA hat, you get all kinds of interference. So what are you going to do? That's life. C'est la vie. But I want to play this and put together a clip here. This is Ann Coulter from Tim Pool, and I'll put my mic up to the speaker, and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
Because the 2016 campaign, I think, was the greatest presidential campaign in world history. But in the book, I make it very clear he's an awful person. He's a con man. He's a grifter. Horrible, tacky vulgarian. Got all that. But he's the only one offering us this basket of issues I want to vote on. Yeah. Obviously, number one, immigration. Number 2, 3, and 4, immigration and the wall. Bringing trade back, this worship of free trade, and no more stupid wars. Those were like the 3 biggest things. And he supported things like, gun rights very strongly. So Trump gets elected, doesn't build the wall, builds 33 miles, 6 months before the election, the 2,000-mile border. I think he's a narcissistic. The one thing I didn't know when I wrote In Trump We Trust is how profoundly stupid he is. I made very clear in the book the only thing he could do, we will forgive him for anything. And I defended him the day after the Access Hollywood, grabbing tape came out. I was giving a speech before 5,000 people in California up in farmland. And I was pedal to the metal defending him. And I said, we'll forgive him for anything, but unless you betray us on immigration. Yeah. Oh, and guess what he did? You can't do every campaign rally, build the wall, build the wall, build the wall, and then not build the wall and expect to get reelected.
Okay, so that's Ann Coulter on Tim Pool. And a few things about this. First off, this is not new with Ann Coulter. She's been trashing Trump for years, okay? It's not new. And I know it's being kind of presented that way in a lot of places because, the powers that be, the anti-Trump forces, are always looking for someone to go out there and trash Trump for them and prop them up. And she may very well find herself on some national interviews over this. Outside of Tim Pool, I'm talking about back on cable news, which she's been really banished from because she's bashing Trump, and that's what the mainstream corporate media like, Trump bashers. So she very well could be trolling the media to get back on television, which she's kind of been banished from. The Coven of the View might even invite her back if she keeps talking this way, because this Tim Pool interview Ann Coulter did is getting a lot of play. A few things about this. She's talking about Trump didn't deliver what he promised. Are you kidding me? He kept all of his promises. She's leaving out a lot of information here, okay? She talked earlier about in this same interview about, Ron DeSantis will finish the wall and he'll do it. What she's leaving out are a lot of things. Unlike any other president ever of the United States, I'm going all the way back to General Washington, okay? When a president is in power, whoever they are, they have their party on their side. They have to battle the opposition party. Reagan had to battle the Democrats. Clinton had to battle the Republicans. President Trump had to battle the Democrats and the Republicans in his first term. All right? And the reason that the wall is not finished has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It has to do with her Lincoln Project, Weekly Standard friends, okay? The Paul Ryans. We controlled the Congress the first 2 years of President Trump's first term, and they're the ones who stopped the funding of the wall. And that's a fact, okay? So President Trump delivered on everything. The reason the wall wasn't finished is because of Paul Ryan. Now, later on, it was Schumer and Pelosi, but we were in control for 2 years, and boom, the Republican establishment, because they hate him, stopped the funding of the wall. Now, another thing she talked about in this interview, Ann Coulter, which is so wrong and such a misrepresentation of everything, that he was going to give amnesty to the Dreamers. That is not true. President Trump is, think about it. Before Trump came down the escalator, on the radio, and in a podcast, I never talked about the southern border before Trump came down the escalator. And some of you that have listened to me for a long time may know why, but I'm going to tell you why for those that don't know. The reason I didn't talk about the southern border or the immigration issue before Trump came down the escalator is because none of these Republicans were going to do anything about it. They talked about it, but they weren't going to do anything about it. So I didn't waste time talking about something that was not going to happen because there wasn't one Republican that had the guts to stand up and do what had to be done. In fact, people like Marco Rubio were the ones talking about giving amnesty to everyone that was already here illegal. Remember this? The Republican Party, before Trump came down the escalator, were pushing amnesty. So never talked about it because they were never going to secure the border. And then Trump came down the escalator and said, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. And you know what? Mexico did pay for it when he got rid of NAFTA and renegotiated the trade deal. That is how Mexico paid for the wall. No, it's not Monday. But this Ann Coulter thing just ticked me off. And I decided I was going to go stream about it this morning. My first thought was I was going to talk about it on the podcast tonight, which I'm sure I will with Kathy. But I didn't want to wait till the podcast. I wanted to get into it now. It just pissed me off so much. And what pissed me off is that Ann Coulter's comments not only are outrageous and disgusting, they are just wrong, okay? The wall wasn't finished because of Paul Ryan and the Republican establishment in Trump's first 2 years. It should have been done then. They stopped the funding. And then, of course, Pelosi and Schumer. Now, so far as the amnesty, President Trump is a brilliant businessman. Look, he took $1 million as a loan from his father and turned it into this empire that he has. And by the way, he paid back his father. How many of you paid back your parents? How many of you parents have been paid back by your kids? Trump is the only son I know, the only child I know that's paid back their father. So when you're in business, there's negotiations that go on, right? There's negotiations that go on. To get what you want when you're going up against someone, you have to give them a little. So he didn't give amnesty, but he wanted to talk about it with them as a way to lure them into a negotiation. And look what happened. Look what happened. And Ann Coulter, see, Ann Coulter is very smart. She knows everything I'm sharing with you, but she's part of this Republican Never Trumper Lincoln Project group, okay? The same one Laura Ingram's with. So she's being deceptive. But here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. When Donald Trump was not going to give amnesty to the Dreamers, but he knew that the Democrats didn't want them to get amnesty either, okay? So look what he did. What Trump did when he talked about amnesty to the Democrats was such a brilliant move. He smoked out the Democrats. Pelosi and Schumer, he offered amnesty because he knew they were going to turn it down, and they did. And they got exposed. That Pelosi and Schumer, the Democrats, were exposed to all of these dreamers that they really don't want you to get amnesty. See, what Democrats don't want to solve any problems. They want people living in fear, right? They want to give you, like if you're a dreamer, for example, the Democrats have no intention on giving you amnesty. They want to give you 2 years, 3 years, 4, 5 years, and then it expires, so you have to come back to them to be rescued. They want you to be dependent on them. And the way one of the many ways, they get people dependent in all kinds of ways, welfare and all that stuff. But one of the things that they do to keep people like the Dreamers dependent, and they do this with other things too, is they put a time limit on something. Okay, you can stay in the country now, but in 3 years, it expires. And we're going to be the savior to extend it. So you understand what I mean? And Trump smoked out and exposed the Democrats for this huge lie that they were going to give amnesty to the Dreamers. And I think Ann Coulter knows that, and she's being deceptive. The other thing, if you look at, she talked about free trade. That what President Trump did that turned everyone against him more than anything. I've been talking about this for years because it's true, but what President Trump did that turned them all against him in the worst way was when he balanced out the import-export taxes. All right, remember there were these crazy deals like, where was the country that had the 80% import tax on Harley Davidsons? It was like Thailand. I can't remember if it was Thailand. It was a Pacific nation. I don't remember which one. And then we have like nothing when they import here. And President Trump, and he was talking about, trade deals with China and the out of balance import-export trade deals with Japan and all these countries. And President Trump talked about all the time at the rallies, our leaders have been stupid. They negotiated these ridiculous deals. Carolyn Kennedy, he was being kind. They didn't negotiate bad deals, our leaders, our presidents, our senators, our representatives. They sold our country out. And the reason that they have no import taxes to speak of into America, and they have huge ones with our products going in, is because they all got payoffs, kickbacks, and paid off like Biden does, okay? They've been selling out our country since the end of the Second World War, when we became a world power and the number one of everything in the world, economically and militarily. They've been selling us out since 1945. And those trade balances were designed that way by our American officials, okay? And when President Trump reset all that to equalize it, that's when they turned against him. That's the one thing out of, I know it's, maybe you don't agree with me on that, and maybe a lot of people haven't thought about it, but he messed up their whole racket that these countries and companies and donors have with these Washington politicians of both parties, the Republican and the Democrat establishment, selling our country out. That's what really did things wrong in the mind of these establishment never-Trumpers. Oh my goodness. So I'm just disgusted by Ann Coulter and her comments. I'm going to play it again because there's other things I want to talk about while I'm having my coffee this morning. But this is Ann Coulter from Tim Pool. If you're just tuning in, make sure, by the way, you guys like the video And if you're new to my channel, subscribe. I'm out in front of Starbucks here on this Sunday morning. Very busy. Here we go. This is Ann Coulter.
Because the 2016 campaign, I think, was the greatest presidential campaign in world history. But in the book, I make it very clear he's an awful person. He's a con man. He's a grifter. Horrible, tacky vulgarian. Got all that. But he's the only one offering us this basket of issues I want to vote on. Yeah. Obviously, number 1, immigration. Number 2, 3, and 4, immigration and the wall. Bringing trade back, this worship of free trade, and no more stupid wars. Those were like the 3 biggest things. And he supported things like, gun rights very strongly. So Trump gets elected, doesn't build the wall, builds 33 miles, 6 months before the election. It's a 2,000-mile border. I think he's a narcissistic. The one thing I didn't know when I wrote In Trump We Trust is how profoundly stupid he is. I made very clear in the book the only thing he could do, we will forgive him for anything. And I defended him the day after the Access Hollywood, grabbing tape came out. I was giving a speech before 5,000 people in California up in farmland. And I was pedal to the metal defending him. And I said, we'll forgive him for anything, but unless you betray us on immigration. Yeah. Oh, and guess what he did? You can't do every campaign rally, build the wall, build the wall, build the wall, and then not build the wall and expect to get reelected.
Okay, so I'll ask you guys in the chat, does anyone in the chat believe, yes or no, yes he did, no he didn't, did President Trump betray us on immigration? Yes or no? No way. No way. No way. And these never Trumpers in the Republican establishment, they think we're stupid, okay? Because they've got all this power over us. And but they all have the same level of intelligence as Mayor Pete. It's true. Mayor Pete and Kamala is the average intelligence level of these Washington people. And so what did they do, right? They got this snake Paul Ryan, and there's something up with that guy. He's young for an elected official, and he just walked away from being Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. Who does that? There's something up with that guy. I don't know exactly what it is or what caused it, but there's something up with that guy, Paul Ryan. But the Republican establishment in those first 2 years stopped Trump from getting the funding for the wall, right? And then what do? They tell us that he didn't do what he said he would do. He didn't finish the wall after they're the ones who stopped it. Remember, with this great victory we have with this MAGA House of Representatives, in the 2 houses of Congress, the House of Representatives is the most powerful because they control the money. Sometimes you hear people say they control the purse strings. The spending is controlled through the House. And they stopped it. So they stopped Trump. They don't let him get his funding for the wall. And notice she doesn't even reference that the Republican establishment controlled the Congress in the first 2 years of Trump's first term. They stop him from getting the funding, the Republican establishment. And then they say, yes, we're live on Sunday morning. And then they say he didn't do what he said he would do. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? And Ann Coulter, I used to be such a fan of hers. Oh, finally. I'm getting kind of used to that noise. Aren't you guys getting used to it? It's gotten quiet now. Exactly. They can spend billions in Ukraine because they're getting, well, of that Ukraine money, how much of it do you think is actually making it over there? 10%? 20%? How much of it's staying here? She's been a never Trumper. Now, she did go to the first few rallies. I pinned in the chat, and I'll tell you in a bit because I don't want to get further triggered. I put on the MAGA hat, and then all of a sudden, the noise started, so I don't want to start a thing here. I'll tell you guys in a minute. Yeah, exactly. 1% probably, JQ. I can see that 1%. No, Ann Coulter, Steve and I were very good friends with her boyfriend that she had at the time of the beginning of the first campaign. I don't know if they're still together. And he stopped being friends with us because we were supporting Trump. I mean, can you imagine? It's insanity. Complete insanity. Who even knows what's going on? I think you guys in this chat room know what's going on. I know what's going on. You guys know what's going on. So that's Ann Coulter. You know, describe Ann Coulter in one word. No profanities, please. You know, she said the P word. I put that bleep in myself. I pulled that audio and put the bleep in. I didn't want to play the P word. Give me, in one word, without profanity, describe Ann Coulter. Bought. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, you know, she's part of that Republican establishment. She's friends with Kellyanne Conway's husband and all of these people. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, she'll never be relevant in my mind. I think she's done permanent damage. You know, what she did to herself is what Beck did. You know, Glenn Beck was a never-Trumper. And maybe I'm wrong because I just don't listen to him. You guys let me know. Is Beck relevant anymore, Glenn Beck? I don't think Glenn Beck has ever gained back his relevancy or his clout. You know, he did some good stuff during the botched Afghan withdrawal. That's for sure. But he was bashing Trump because he had all these friends and he was, you know, he was going to be inside the White House, sleeping in the Lincoln bedroom and all this stuff. And a lot of people forget how big and relevant Glenn Beck was. I mean, remember he did that thing at the Washington Mall? He had 50,000 people show up at the Washington Mall, maybe even more. It was amazing. And now, how many people could Glenn Beck get to show up? Yeah, Colonel Sanders impersonator, exactly. He looks ridiculous. Oh my goodness. He's never regained his clout or credibility. Mark Levin recovered from it, but I haven't listened to Mark Levin since then, since he started trashing Trump. I know Trump has brought him in the fold and everything now, but you know, remember what I said? Never trust a never-Trumper. You know, it's like when people overcome addictions, alcohol or drug addiction. Many times they slip, and you know, like Candace Owens showed her true colors. Yeah, well, she said that thing about Nikki Haley because she's trying to be relevant. You know, because she always had these one-liners and these zingers and everything, and she's just trying to be relevant. How many of you guys watched my vlog that I did yesterday, going up to Mar-a-Lago and Jeffrey Epstein's house and all that guy? Did you guys see that yesterday? You know, that video and is about 13 minutes long. It took me 5 hours to make that video. I want you guys to know, 5 hours. Yeah, the weather report, Alexa told me that the weather was going to be spectacular. And I took the MAGA scooter up there and I got to Mar-a-Lago and it started raining. And it was windy and rainy. And the intro, I was actually standing under the bridge to Mar-a-Lago to stay out of the rain. It doesn't look like I'm under the bridge, but I'm under a bridge. And I called Kathy. I'm like, oh my goodness. I said, I'm up here. I'm on the MAGA scooter. It's raining. It's windy. It was cold. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So then I waited a few minutes under the bridge, and the weather improved, and then I went and made the video. There were some others, well-known celebrities I did not get to. I'll show them another time, some of the others, but I don't know. I should be invited. I mean, you know, I should most definitely be invited. There's no doubt about that. I'd be so nervous. I wouldn't even know what to wear if I got invited to Mar-a-Lago. Well, this for sure, my favorite MAGA hat. But other than this, I don't even know what I would wear. I don't know. What would you wear? It was a fun tour, yeah. It was pretty nice. Pretty nice. Oh, that church is nice. I did an entire tour a couple years ago of that church, all over the grounds and everything. But when I first got there, I didn't show it too much because they don't like you showing this. there were these Chevy Suburban. The streets were blocked off. I couldn't park. The Chevy Suburbans were all around the place, on the sides and in the back, and yeah. So I don't know what was going on. I mean, I assumed President Trump or Melania or someone was going by there. There was some event going on inside, and I've never seen that kind of. Oh, the weather's nice now. The sun's out. It's a sunny day. Today would have been a better day to do that vlog than yesterday. But I've never seen that much security around a place in Palm Beach like that, outside of like Mar-a-Lago. And then I noticed, because I don't show the security, you know, I'll talk about it, but the security was more intense than it has been in the last year or so. And I'm wondering, I was thinking, is it because he's an announced candidate now? Have they increased security? There's always a lot of security, but the security was much heavier all around. There's a lot of Secret Service. I mean, and these guys, you know, I saw two Secret Service guys talking. One of them was like in like fatigues with this massive rifle that looks like it should be mounted on a helicopter. And he was talking to another Secret Service man who was in a tuxedo, and he had a gun and everything, and he was in a tuxedo. I was like, oh my God, I never seen that before. It was crazy. So I was thinking that he, you know, sometimes they have them in, and he was out in front of Mar-a-Lago, and I didn't show any of that because of the security. I don't want to show the security. And when I went to the airport where Trump Force One is, Trump Force, you know, you guys may have seen my video I did a couple months back when Trump Force One first came back home. They have it behind some layers of security that they don't normally have. They've increased security on Trump Force One too. It's a little more secluded than it you can still see it, but not like that one video I made. So something is going on. I'm assuming it's because we're getting into the presidential campaign season. So make sure you guys like the video. Okay, only about a third of you have liked the video, so please like the video. Tim Pool has a point. What point did Tim Pool make? What are you talking about? He only wears the beanies because he's bald. You know, he doesn't want people to see that he's bald. Oh, yeah. Now, I want to talk a bit here about President Carter, because, you know, he's in hospice care now at home, and it doesn't look good. You know, yeah, I just have hat head this morning because I didn't shower. I just got up and got a little hat head. Well, bed head. This is bed head. My pillow bed head. But I'd wear the hat anyway. You know, I've been reading all these stories about President Carter, and, you know, they talk about the Iran hostage crisis, but it's kind of like, you know, a whitewash of the whole situation. You know, what they leave out of Jimmy Carter and the Iran hostage crisis, because the way it is pretty big. What they act like is, well, you know, they took those 51 Americans, they held them for 444 days, and Jimmy Carter always went around saying, well, I got them all back alive, and I'm reading this coverage of Jimmy Carter and their attitude, well, what could he have done? He got them all back alive, what could he have done? You know, and what they leave out is what he did that resulted in them getting captured. And, you know, and Jimmy Carter and the entire Carter administration are a bunch of liberal do-gooders who have all these ideas and theories that none work in reality, okay? And they backed the Shah. They didn't take the Ayatollah as a serious threat. And Jimmy Carter's incompetence led to the overthrow of the Shah. Should never have let the Shah come here. And he put the Ayatollah in power. you know, all this, we see all this deep state activity against President Trump, right? And the MAGA movement. The Shah of Iran was a CIA stooge. You know, that's just the way it is. You know, the CIA ran a coup in the 50s and in Iran, put the Shah in power, and then Jimmy Carter and Mika Brzezinski's father, who was his national security advisor and everything, did everything wrong and put basically the Ayatollah in charge. And if you want, think about this now, you know, what is the Carter legacy, would you say? Think about it. It's not building houses. I know they're going to try to tell you that, but once Iran was taken over by the Islamic State and became a theocracy of radical Islam, look what's happened. Iran has been funding Hamas and every Islamic major terrorist organization since 1979. Think about that. You know, I really think about that. If you have, I can't remember the name of this. I watched this maybe a year ago, maybe 6 months ago. If any of you have the HBO app, there's a great documentary on the Iran hostage crisis. Very good. And I was surprised how honest it is. I don't know if it's still on there, and I can't remember the title. You could probably, yeah, it's on HBO. I might watch it again. It's 2-3 parts, you know. But Jimmy Carter screwing up Iran has caused the rise of Al-Qaeda, Islamic terrorism, ISIS, all those suicide, homicide bombers that have in Israel against the Jews. All that is because Jimmy Carter screwed up in Iran and let the Ayatollah take over. All of that, you know. I think, you know, and that's a reality. None of that is in any of the reporting on this. That was Billy Carter, Billy Beer. Yeah, you know, Billy Carter was a lot like Hunter. I remember he took, was it $80,000 payment he got from Saudi Arabia? Nobody knows what it was for, you know. But you look at the rise. Now, obviously, there was Islamic terrorism before Jimmy Carter, right? Munich, you know, and things like this. But if you remember, when in the 80s, when Reagan was president, there were all these hijackings to Beirut, all this stuff, right? That was Iran. Iran backed all of that crap. And they did it because they got control of a country that is an oil-rich nation, and Jimmy Carter put him in control of that country, just like Biden put the Taliban back in charge of Afghanistan, you know, which is a thriving country now because we rebuilt it. And, you know, it's a first world country almost. At least economically it is, because they have a lot of resources, you know. I mean, that's the reality of it. So, you know, and don't forget, you know, just some of you'll know because I've talked about this before. This is an interesting thing. Van Jones, remember he was friends with Obama, and, you know, we were talking about Glenn Beck a minute ago, and he got that job with Obama, Van Jones, and Glenn Beck took this lead, and Obama actually fired Van Jones because of Glenn Beck. Remember that? And I never heard of Van Jones before, and I just thought that he was some guy that went to college with Obama or something. Never heard of him before. And then I find out Van Jones was married to Jimmy Carter's niece. Van Jones, now it's his ex-wife now, but they have kids together. They've only been divorced a couple years. Van Jones is, the mother of his children is Billy Carter's daughter. I mean, think about that. This guy, Van Jones, is so establishment, it's sick. He was better connected than Obama. Think about it. Van Jones, the mother of his children, is Jimmy Carter's niece. That's right, her father is Billy Carter. When I first found that, I was like, what? Are you kidding? That, like, shocked me. It blew me away. Not many people know that. Oh, I know, isn't it crazy? They're divorced now. They've been divorced a couple years, but that's the mother of his children, and they were married for a long, long time. I know. These people, it's all incestuous up there. All incestuous. It's just, they're not regular people like us. They're just not. They're just not. Oh my goodness. Let's see, do I have Wi-Fi? I lost my Wi-Fi connection. Hold on. Let me get connected to the Starbucks Wi-Fi. Don't worry, I use a VPN. His analysis sometimes is pretty spot on, and then you're right, he pulls it back. I had a couple other stories I wanted to talk about too, just to mention. And I'll talk more about these on the podcast and on the radio this week. But Susan Rice has a new job. Listen, did you hear about this? Listen to this. Joe Biden has appointed Susan Rice, like he's with it enough to appoint somebody to something. His handlers appointed Susan Rice. Joe Biden has appointed Susan Rice to be chair of the new White House Steering Committee on Equity. That's right. The White House Steering Committee on Equity's mission is to conduct a sweeping racial equity progressive makeover of the federal government with the establishment of agency equity teams. Now, anytime I go to any government office, I'm like the white guy, right? Everybody that works in government offices that I've dealt with are almost always minority. Almost always. So maybe racial equity is going to try to find out. It's like the NBA. Maybe they're going to try to find out, or the NFL. They're going to try to find out why there aren't enough white people. Right? Come on, give me a break. Yeah. They're going to conduct, led by Susan Rice, conduct a sweeping racial equity progressive makeover of the federal government with the establishment of agency equity teams in all departments that will answer to Susan Rice. Biden issued an executive order on Thursday titled Executive Order on Further Advancing Racial Equity and Support for Underserved Communities Through the Federal Government. The agency equity teams will have the power and funding to transform the federal government by delivering I can even hardly say the word, by delivering equitable outcomes through government policies, programs, and activities. Jeez. Yeah. And I know this isn't the federal government, but go to the DMV. You know, any white people at the DMV working? The only white people there are the ones getting a driver's license renewal. Every year, agencies will submit an equity action plan to the White House Steering Committee on Equity, chaired by Susan Rice. Each equity team shall support continued equity training and equity leadership development for staff across all levels of that agency's workforce. Oh my goodness. And here's a bit of the announcement. Listen to this. Ambassador Susan E. Rice is the domestic policy advisor in the Biden administration. As director of the Domestic Policy Council, she drives the formulation and implementation of President Biden's domestic policy agenda, from economic mobility and racial equity to health care and immigration. Well, maybe she can help me get health insurance. I have no health insurance. Maybe Susan Rice can find out why I don't have health insurance and give it to me, huh? That's right. Yes. That is just stupid. Just stupid. Yes, welcome everyone. Make sure you like the video. All right, my coffee's almost done, so just more clowns for the big tent in DC. Yeah. Well, you know, all these things are about the same thing. White people are bad, and you know what's happened, and it's really sad. It's really sad because there is not a single person in this chat room. I know there's not a single person in this chat room who does not believe in racial equality. And I don't even like to say racial, because I say we're all the same race. We're all human. We're all parts of the human race. We're different ethnicities. There is not a single person in this chat room that does not believe that people of all skin colors, all ethnicities, all backgrounds are equal in this country. None of you believe that we're anything but that, you know? And what's happened is we have total equality now, right? Well, we achieved it. We've achieved equality over everything, right? Women, blacks, Hispanics, well, everybody's equal now, right? Everyone is equal now. And exactly. And what's happened? Minorities like Susan Rice are now empowered. And in the past, there were, you know, there were problems. I mean, everybody admits that. We've come a long way, baby, right? But now that minorities have been empowered, look what they're doing. They're becoming oppressors. I don't know about becoming oppressors. And there's an attitude among people like Susan Rice that think that, well, you know, white people have had say long enough, and it's time for white people to sit down and shut up. And it's our time now. That's not what the civil rights movement was all about, you know. And I know people say, well, you know, Martin Luther King would be appalled by this. If you took Martin Luther King from the height of the civil rights movement until today, he would be appalled by a lot of it. But if he had lived, he would have been corrupted just like Jesse Jackson and all the rest, probably. You know, they would have gotten to him, you know, just like they would have gotten to President Kennedy. He would have turned into just like his scummy brother Ted. You know, that's just the way that it is. But their idea of equity is racial discrimination. You know, that's the way it is. And this is the thing about this thing here with Susan Rice is very particular about the federal government. The federal government has been run by leftists our entire lives. These different agencies, the bureaucracy has been run by leftists. So if there is not racial equity in the federal government, right, in the agencies of the federal government, what is Biden and Susan Rice saying here? That the bureaucracy, this left-wing bureaucracy in the government has been discriminating against minorities? Come on. It's upsetting. You know, you got to really worry about our country with this kind of BS going on. I mean, I know I do. You know. But Ann Coulter, just don't give Ann Coulter any credibility. Well, hello, Kim, in the UK. Crooked from the beginning. Exactly. They're all crooked. No doubt about it. Oh, my goodness. Cultural Marxism. Yeah, it's a lot of things. You know, we don't need all these, you're right, Crazy Colombian, but we don't need all these fancy college words. What you have are bigots. Susan Rice is a bigot, okay? Whoopi Goldberg is a bigot. And they want to punish white people. You know, I watched The View on Thursday because they had the cast of Star Trek The Next Generation on, so I watched it, and they didn't have them on until like the show was almost over. And I watched Whoopi Goldberg talk in that first segment of that show, The View. I couldn't believe what I was listening to. It was like I was listening to the Black Panthers in 1967, 68. I mean, it was like, whoa. And she, you know, it was crazy, her anger towards white people and Republicans. And, you know, Whoopi Goldberg, let me see if I can get this right. She has an Oscar, a Tony, an Emmy, and a Grammy. Did I leave one out? An Oscar, a Tony, an Emmy, and a Grammy. Did I leave one of them? Is there another major award that I've left out? Do you know how few people have all of those? Not very many. An Oscar, a Tony, an Emmy, and a Grammy. You know, more people have walked on the moon than have all of those. Not kidding. You know, and and I left out the part that she's a multimillionaire. So she's a multimillionaire. She's got an Oscar, an Emmy, a Grammy. I don't know what she got the Grammy for, and the Tony Award. And she's a millionaire, and she is a victim. How you know, if that makes you a victim, can someone victimize me? My goodness. You know? And she works 4 days a week for an hour. She walks in right before the show and leaves right after. That's true. You know, here I am streaming on Sundays and everything, you know, but she's the victim. You know, and I couldn't believe, and you know, I don't watch that show. I play clips from it because I'll see something on Twitter or I'll hear something about it, I'll pull the clip. I haven't watched that show in a long time, and I saw, who's the other one on there? Sunny Hostin. Oh my gosh. I mean, these are just two very racist people. And I mean, it's not a political disagreement. You know, we have disagreements politically. They just hate white people, and it's insane to me. Insane. She used to be a funny, interesting person, Whoopi Goldberg, and she's just become, well, maybe she was always this way, you know? Maybe she's always been this way. And she has her own blackface incident. Excuse me. You know, and I'm not talking about Joy Behar and her blackface, that she did that, but Whoopi Goldberg, when she was dating Ted Danson, he went to the Friars Roast in blackface. Remember that? Anybody remember when she took Ted Danson to the Friars Roast in blackface? He's lucky he survived that. And I wonder, was she having a hard time with Ted Danson at the time and she told him to go in blackface to screw him over? Would not surprise me. But that, you know, this thing that Biden's talking about with Susan Rice, with racial equity in the federal government, give me a break. There's overrepresentation of minorities in government per percentage of the population. I'd like to know, you know, I saw a few stories on this. I didn't see a breakdown. What percentage of the federal bureaucracy is minority compared to the U.S. population? I don't know. I couldn't find that information. Nothing up to date. You know, I don't know. I wouldn't even guess on the number. But it's much higher than the percentage of the population. So there's certainly discrimination against non-minorities if they're into racial equality, right? Racial equity. If there's overrepresentation of minorities, that means there's discrimination against white people. But you know, they're liberal minorities. They see the world in America a little differently than we do. I've used this one example a few times, and it was very enlightening to me. I was watching on YouTube. I was in the, you know, I go through this phase on YouTube where I'll watch some different, you know, genre of video. And for a while, I was watching van lifers. You know, all these RVers and homeless people, you know, that are glorifying homelessness, living in their cars and vans, traveling across the country, or traveling in RVs and everything. And after the tragedy with Gabby Petito, that niche has kind of dried up. But I was watching all these van lifers, these homeless people, and then you know, and how YouTube does, you know, recommendations, and then YouTube started recommending to me. There's a sub-genre to van life on YouTube, black van life and black RV life. It's a whole subgenre. And Kathy and I were watching this video of a very nice black family, and they had an RV, and they live in their RV, and they travel America, and they were talking to their viewers, and the wife says, "We bought this RV. We didn't inherit money. We don't have a trust fund. We worked and we bought this RV." And I thought to her, when I heard her say that, she thinks that white people are all born with trust funds, that we all are born into wealth, that we all are given things by our parents. I wish that was true. don't you guys? And that was like kind of a bit of a, in a way, that's why sometimes you gotta, people ask me all the time, why do you listen to these liberals? Why do you watch this? Why do you listen to that? You gotta understand what the opposition's thought process is. So you listen to liberals, you watch other things, and you can understand where they're coming from a little bit. And it's bizarre. Susan Rice is just, hates white people, but, oh my goodness. I tell you. When my coffee's done, I'll end the stream. It's almost done, guys. Exactly. Buying a lottery ticket. Oh, yeah, I got robbed yesterday. Oh my gosh, I got robbed. Home invasion yesterday was the plumber. Oh my gosh. So, I can do some things involving plumbing, but sometimes, for the second time, Kathy and I have been homeowners. Well, we had a condo. We've lived in our house. Let's see. We've lived in this house like 18 years, and then before that we had a condo. And all the times I've been a homeowner, yesterday was the second time I had to call a plumber. And calling the plumber is the worst, So by the time you call the plumber, I've done everything I know how to do, and I'm Googling, I'm on YouTube, and nothing worked. And what had happened was our kitchen sink was stopped up, and it was backing into the dishwasher. And I did everything you could imagine. Did everything I could imagine, and it had a more serious problem that required professional help. Believe me. So the plumber came out, and I knew what was wrong, but you don't have the tools and everything. Sometimes you got to hire a professional, and it had to be snaked out, but not like with a snake I can go get at Home Depot, with like a professional snake on the outside drain of the house. And it was $651, right? So he comes, and I knew what it needed before he told me. I didn't tell him. I waited for him to tell me. And he told me what it needed, which is what I thought it needed, and he said $651. And I said, okay. And he said, and this is, he said, and it'll take me about 45 minutes. I said, okay. And then I had to sign off on his iPad and everything, and he charged me, and he did it. And I told Kathy, I said, what he's doing is going to take 5, maybe 10 minutes, and he's telling me 45, and maybe he'll take half an hour or 45 minutes, so I feel like he's done $651 worth of work, but what he's doing is going to take 5 minutes, including putting the equipment out and everything else. And it took him about 10 minutes, like I figured, maybe 15, getting out the equipment, putting the equipment up. It was insane. I was totally robbed. Now the stuff, you can rent this, yeah, but I've never done that, doing it with the drain on the outside of the house, and the stuff that came out, oh my gosh. It's probably the first time it's been done since the house was built. My house was built in the 70s, so I got an older house. So, this was like, 40 years worth of stuff. It smelled awful. Oh my gosh, did it smell awful. I can still, as I'm talking about it, I can still smell it. It's normal, but it's overpriced. I think that should have been a $200 job, maybe $250. They're coming out to the house, they're doing it. $651. I think that's a bit much. Yeah, and he did it so quick. And then he knocked on the kitchen window for me to turn the water on to make sure it wasn't draining and everything. Yeah, it smelled of 1,000 camels. That's absolutely right. All right, Jamie Farr. And I'm like, well, can I get a little bit of that money back? I'm thinking, because I turned the water. I'm helping him. Oh my goodness. I know. And then after he left is when I went and made that video yesterday. And I was like, oh my gosh. Just, it was like a home invasion robbery. Because what are you going to do, you know? And I can fix a lot of things. But sometimes you got to call the professional. Everything's working now. I just got to work harder now to make some money to make up for it. Because it's tax time. You spend 30, you won 2 back. Oh my goodness. That's right. That's why I said, did you hear me say Jamie Farr? I remember that joke. I wasn't sure if it was on MASH or Cannonball Run when Jamie Farr said that. I hope so, Kim. An apprentice bill. That's right. That's right. Ugh. That's life, you know. It could have been worse. It could have been worse, I'm here to tell you. So I got lucky. I got lucky. So for the people that are just tuning in, before I go, let me play Ann Coulter again, because that's what the main topic was of this stream. So Ann Coulter, I'm going to put my mic up to the speaker when I play it, because I've got my iPad here at Starbucks. I'm on their liberal Wi-Fi. But Ann Coulter went on Tim Pool over the weekend trashing Trump. Here.
Because the 2016 campaign, I think, was the greatest presidential campaign in world history. But in the book, I make it very clear he's an awful person. He's a con man. He's a grifter. Horrible, tacky vulgarian. Got all that. But he's the only one offering us this basket of issues I want to vote on. Yeah. Obviously, number 1, immigration. Number 2, 3, and 4, immigration and the wall. Bringing trade back, this worship of free trade, and no more stupid wars. Those were like the 3 biggest things. And he supported.
And by the way, he did all of those things, right?
Things like, gun rights very strongly. So Trump gets elected, doesn't build the wall, builds 33 miles, 6 months before the election. It's a 2,000-mile border. I think he's a narcissistic. I didn't read. The one thing I didn't know when I wrote In Trump We Trust is how profoundly stupid he is. I made very clear in the book the only thing he could do, we will forgive him for anything. And I defended him the day after the Access Hollywood grabbing tape came out. I was giving a speech before 5,000 people in California up in farmland. And I was pedal to the metal defending him. And I said, we'll forgive him for anything, but unless you betray us on immigration. Yeah. Oh, and guess what he did? You can't do every campaign rally, build the wall, build the wall, build the wall, and then not build the wall and expect to get reelected.
Okay. So I'm not going to go through my analysis of her lies, misrepresentations, and slanders of President Trump, but I do at the beginning of the video. So you guys that were not here in the beginning, go back to the beginning, and you'll hear all of it, of my breakdown of her disgusting comments. If she's peddling a book, who's going to buy that book? Liberals and never Trumpers. She that's it. Well, guys, the coffee is done, so I'm going to sign off and head home. But if you joined in progress, go to the beginning of the video, and I do a complete breakdown of the lies and slanders and misrepresentations. I know those all mean the same thing, of Ann Coulter on our great President Trump. All right, guys, make sure you like the video before you go, guys, okay? Only about half of you like the video so far. Go and like the video. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, all right? I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.